mission.
Your file
Should
shows
you choose to accept it?
It takes two.
Light the fuse.
How do you die? In contact? Not well.
Why?
The second is... Yes. Considerably.
The American CIA have been complaining about massive interference with their rockets. You're booked on the 7 o'clock plane at your pocket. What can you tell me about that?
Select. Missiles are only the first step.
Well, policy.
World domination. Same old three.
Thank you.
Delaware 7, this way, please.
I think it's time for us to go and figure night out.
We're pros, Mr. Bond.
This isn't personal, any reference. It's a cycle like any other.
How does it feel, old man?
Do not kill me, Mr. Bond. At least not until we've had a drink.
You're full of surprises, Contessa.
Who are you, Mr. Bond?
This never happened to the other fellow.
What do you know about a man called Scaramanga?
The man with the golden gun.
This is the part I really like. Moonraker 1, lift off.
How do you accept?
Someone will take care of you.
You'll see to that person, will you? Two of our agents are dead. Let it go, Commander.
I am in the darkest much as you are. You do not kill without reason.
Self-destruct in 5 seconds.
This is where it ends, Commander.
Farewell to all.
Tell me what you know of James Bond. He's a 00.
Channeling a sophisticated secret creature. Just when we boy die.
You first.
Enjoy it.
The words I have found.
I knew it was too early to predict you that.
I understand our lives have a very short life expectancy. The first thing you should know about us is that we have people everywhere.
You're not going to let me in there. You've got your honor back.
I have no name left. Whatever is left of me, whatever I am, I'm yours.
There's no time. Take the bloody shot.
What do you say about a man like that?
I want to meet with employer.
Be careful what you wish for.
But choose who by this. This is washing my lips.
I know your quartermaster. It's been coded to your palm print, so only you can fire it.
Everybody needs a hobby.
So what's yours? Resurrection.
One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Man vs. Film, our new show that we're basically finding two different fandoms and comparing and contrasting them and giving you the best fandom that would fit into your type of film genre, I guess you could say. My name is Lewis.
And I'm John.
Alright, John, what other reviews do you do, what shows do you do, and stuff like that?
Well, my channel is Narcotic Cassarole Productions. We do the general film reviews, but we also have editorial features such as close examinations where we delve into the minutia of certain aspects of movies. Then we also have the area that I've pretty much reserved for my love of Schadenfreude, the Cinema Schlock Society, where I lure unsuspecting people to the den of this depraved man called the Founder, who he forces to watch bad movies and gauge their reaction. We just did the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yes, I wasn't able to go to that one, sorry, man.
You missed out.
I missed such a good time. I saw that video and it was great.
I was very proud of how that one turned out. Yeah, though everyone else wasn't proud of me.
Well, that's the point of it, right?
Yes, it is. Actually, very soon we're going to do kind of a new variation on it, kind of similar to this, but we're going to do a Which is Worse, where we're going to have two movies with a conjoining theme and we're going to decide which of those two are worse.
Nice.
So
Sounds good.
that's what we got next.
So this week we're actually gonna do Mission Impossible and
James Bond.
Of course. So these two fandoms have been pretty much around since the 60s, mid-60s, early 60s, and are still going on to today. The franchises are still moving and in the future have no way of letting up.
Yeah, and actually what's impressive is that Mission Impossible, even though many people thought it was a tired franchise, it's actually growing exponentially. It's actually gotten consistently better. Whereas you got James Bond, a franchise that's been around since even beyond that, when the books were written back in the 50s. You would have thought that formula would have been dying out, but no. If anything else, they seem to be following the Doctor Who thing of just changing it up every now and then to kind of change up the tone, and kind of show how Bond actually is very malleable to the times as they go on.
And that's what I love about these type of fandoms, is that they reinvent themselves and they come back strong. I mean, really strong. The first one that I want to go into analysis on is the characters of each of these films. Go ahead and give your analysis of the characters of James Bond.
Well, the tricky part about James Bond is which version of him do you analyze? That's the funny part.
Which one is your favorite version of James
I
Bond?
can't even play that game. The same thing, you even ask me who's my favorite Doctor, it's the same thing with James Bond. I can never really say who my favorite Bond is. Everyone's going to say Connery, but the thing I loved about every single one of them was that the movies actually changed with the Bond actor. I mean, as we know, Roger Moore was the fun one. His were the ones that got the most silliest, the ones that got a bit more outlandish, and they were great because Roger Moore was the actor who you could kind of allow to be that level of silly. Yeah. But then you got Daniel Craig, who's definitely taking the much more realistic route.
Badass approach.
Well, much more badass, but also the one that actually shows off the mileage of what it is to be Bond. Because if you ever read the books, a lot of it talks about the toll it takes on him. Yeah. And even though Connery is actually pretty close to the way he is in the books, Daniel Craig's the one that actually reflects the Bond, that actually shows how much of a hardship the psychological aspect of it.
That's what I enjoyed about those, actually. The fact that he actually is able to show that he's a flawed individual.
Yeah.
A lot of the characters before, they were just perfect, badass. They didn't have flaws.
Yeah, and which is also fascinating because a long time ago, back when Sean Connery kicked off, Bond was the idyllic personification of what guys would want to be, and of course what they perceived women would want at the same time. But then, as they've explored,
that was the reason to watch all the Bond movies, was the women.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, and
when we were kids.
And then, for me, actually, that's weird. I'm wired very weird. It was never really the women that really got me into it. It was the gadgets. I love the villains. I love the stories, and I love the variety of them all. I mean, because on one side you got Bond going into space in Moonraker, but then all of a sudden you got him taking on a hardcore drug cartel in License to Kill. So there was a sublime variety to it, and it never got stagnant for me. And I was starting to watch it when I was in elementary school, and I just kept going. As I grew up, just kept enjoying. I never got bored with it just because there was such variety to it.
Okay.
So
that's interesting. Mine, of course, is Ethan Hunt for Mission Impossible. He is the main character. Everybody revolves around him pretty much, with the exception of
Luther Stickle.
Yeah, you have the supporting cast, but Ethan Hunt is at the core of every one of the Mission Impossible movies. And he, from his 1996 premiere in the movie franchise, he has shown just a development in character all the way up to today's movies. I mean, his character has developed and evolved, which is very interesting for because this is honestly, this is a ripoff of what do you call it, 007. It's a different variation of it, but it's a ripoff of it.
In his defense, I wouldn't actually say that, because Bond is kind of is the gentleman spy, whereas Ethan Hunt is the all about the job, all about the
He's the American version of James Bond.
In a fashion. I mean, every time I ever see him getting swifty with anyone was the second one with Tandy Newton's character. Yes. And then, of course, he was getting married in the third one. The thing I got to give to Ethan Hunt is they're exploring things that they only alluded to in James Bond, specifically him actually trying to make an effort to have a normal life.
Yeah.
That's why I think Mission Impossible 3 is probably
that. I like that aspect because, again, it's grounded in reality.
Yes.
Like we were talking about the 007 character. It's like, it it was kind of fantastic for me as a kid. So I didn't enjoy the character. I was like, he's not a flawed individual or anything like that. My grandfather, no, somebody in my family that was older generation, he loved the James Bond movies. Every weekend when I went to his house, they always had it on. They always were playing at least one James Bond movie while I was there. It was crazy every time I was there. So I was able to enjoy it, but I didn't sit from the beginning to end. I would come in somewhere in between.
You always came in and the one thing I gotta say, depending on which one you're watching, you can just step in on one of those. All you really need to know in a lot of them is Bond good, bad guy bad.
Yeah. And the bad guy is obvious.
Yeah.
In all of these. Even Mission Impossible. I mean, the bad guy is obvious.
Except the first one. Really? You saw Jim Phelps coming?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That makes one of you.
I mean, it was predictable if you know movies.
Well, but not if you knew the show. That's the thing. You had a lot.
I never watched the show.
Here's the thing. A lot of people, when that first movie came out, were pissed.
Really?
About the revelation of it being Jim Phelps, because in the TV show, Jim Phelps was the he was the Charlie. He was the M. He was the guy who always moderated the group. He was the one who set up the team and all that stuff. And in the show, he was very unflappable. He seemed to be incorruptible. And then all of a sudden, bad guy.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing because it stirs up the pot.
Oh, totally.
And controversy, as we all know, is the source of big box office grosses for these guys.
And not just box office, but it keeps you talking about it.
Oh yeah.
As evidenced by recent franchises that just had their installment, which has in a very juicy fashion divided people.
But hey, I mean, come on. They complain about that, but that fandom, but they're still gonna go watch that movie.
They're still gonna watch
the same thing with the Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Look at the Mission Impossible. They've just exponentially grown, both in box office and in fandom following.
And what should have been just like a cash grab movie, because around the time Mission Impossible came out, there was a bunch of TV-based movies coming out around that time. Mission Impossible, I think, is the only one that seemed to have developed an identity of its own beyond being just a movie based on a TV series.
Well, that's a testament to Tom Cruise as an actor. A lot of people give him a lot of slack and stuff like that because he's into the Scientology and this and that and the other. He's a phenomenal actor.
Well, beyond that,
he is probably one of the best. I put him up there as one of the best actors we currently have. But
I actually give him a lot of credit, not just for... I actually agree, he's a very underappreciated performer, but also... it's well known. People love working with him because he is so dedicated to everything, to the craft of filmmaking. I mean, and of course, it isn't a Mission Impossible movie unless you got him doing a signature stunt and knowing that man's actually doing it.
Yeah,
and it's pretty amazing.
Oh, come on! That first film in 1996, first Mission Impossible, when he's
the vault sequence. Mission Impossible 2. I mean, of course, a lot of the. Actually, practically a lot of that. I mean, what would you say was a signature stunt too? I'd say it was. One would say it's him jumping in through the grating. I mean, even though it was on green screen, he was still doing that stunt.
I like that one the most. I think that was the most.
I'd say for me, it's
physical for him in that movie.
I don't know. I'd say the Burj Khalifa in Ghost Protocol.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good segue. We'll talk about action on both sides.
Yeah, that is actually.
I mean, I guess that is one thing Mission Impossible does have over Bond is the fact you have the leading man actually really pouring himself into it.
Well, hey, Daniel Craig did a lot of those too.
Yeah, Daniel Craig nowadays definitely. Though the one thing I have to give crazy credit to the Bond movies. Those movies were made during the all or nothing days before there was like hardcore post-production effects. There were times, actually, and recently I talked about this in my Double November, Narcotic Cassarole playlist. Check it out. Look below. Where there were a lot of times where cameramen, stuntmen got horribly injured.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Because that's the way you did it back then. I mean, the guy who did the camera work on You Only Live Twice, during the Little Nelly sequence with the gyrocopter, he lost his leg, his foot.
I mean, that's why they filmed a lot of this stuff outside of the United States, because the insurance was so much less.
Exactly.
And it was so much easier to do. Yeah, Mission Impossible, same thing.
Yeah.
Also, we're not filmed here in the United States.
Yeah.
For a good reason.
Because, for every other movie where you got like, oh, let him get on that green hobby horse, and then we'll just put it in afterwards. Yeah. No, here you got friggin' Tom Cruise dangling off the side of a plane,
And I appreciate that so much more, the actual authenticity of the stunts, the action, the movie, the thing that's playing in front of you is an actual physical reproduction of what they wanted to put. That was the actual artist actually making that set, what they wanted to do. And that coordinator doing everything to make it look so badass.
Yeah.
I mean, that takes so much skill and so much work, and I appreciate that as a filmmaker. And I think that's why film is the ultimate art, because it brings every type of artist together.
Yeah.
And puts them into one neat little package for 2 hours.
And clearly it takes that level of imagination for either of these franchises to have survived.
Oh yeah.
For as long as they have. Ironically, the one time they half-assed Bond with CGI and special effects, people noticed, and people noticed it was awful. Die another day. Screw you, die another day.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I mean, especially now, it's so dated that you could tell.
Extremely. Whereas all the other movies, all employed use of practical, they held up. Even when you're savvy to it being a model effect, the model effects still look great because there was so much care.
The Moonraker scenes.
Yeah, actually, one of my favorite things in Moonraker, when you see the space station blowing up, knowing, of course, they're in a vacuum, so of course it would be flame in space. So in order to get that effect, all the special effects guys just grabbed shotguns and just shot the thing to hell.
Nice.
And just did it in slow motion. But that's how they did it. They used shotguns and just blew the thing and just blew the thing.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's what I enjoyed about these films.
Yeah.
It's like seeing those type of practical effects put into play and seeing how they did that.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoyed about watching it when I went to my family's house, because it was like, that was really cool. It was like, oh, that's awesome.
I definitely think that there should be courses taught regarding, especially the way action filmmaking has evolved over the years. The Bond films are a very good element of study, because honestly, if you watch them chronologically, you're basically watching the evolution of action filmmaking, big spectacle filmmaking, evolve in front of your very eyes, all throughout.
And it's a bookmark for action films.
Yeah,
definitely.
So I'd say probably on the level of how influential the series is. Sorry, but I'm gonna say Bond's probably gonna win on that front.
I would say yes, but
yeah, give me the but.
But Mission Impossible has the staying power that I don't think James Bond will have.
50 plus years, dude.
I know, but how much longer? How much longer? Mission Impossible has the ability to make it for the modern generation. James Bond is going to be losing steam soon, because there's only so much you could do with that the audience is going to allow.
That's what people said, and then Casino Royale came out and then proved everyone wrong.
I mean, I could be very wrong, but I think that Mission Impossible is going to have that staying power that James Bond wasn't able to do at the beginning of the franchise, like Mission Impossible is doing now.
I mean, if you were to ask me what franchise would pick up the torch, I would actually say Mission Impossible. Principally, and I'll say they haven't crossed that threshold yet. I mean, Tom Cruise is still making them, but he has set up like people who could carry the torch afterwards. I mean,
I think that's going to be done.
Jeremy Renner's character. We have no idea what Henry Cavill is going to be doing, and that's one thing I gotta admit that Mission Impossible does that Bond does not. Even though Bond does have kind of like his set family group, depending on the generation, Mission Impossible always seems to try to keep some kind of consistent group, especially not just him doing the action, but you got his little team doing the action. You got Bing Rames' character who's been a constant.
But not only that, you also have
Simon Pegg's character.
You have an explanation of where the progression is going to go.
Yeah.
007 doesn't have a progression. You just think it's the same character acted by a different actor. It doesn't have that explanation of why.
There have been some wacky... one of my favorites is that it's a code name.
Yes, and that's the only thing I've ever heard, but I'm like, what?
Like, it's a code name, it's an identity that's given to the said person, and but of course people poke holes in that. But the funny thing is, we were able to maintain the consistency that it was the same person until Casino Royale, when they just decided, screw it, we're rebooting it. Yeah. In a fashion, I wouldn't be surprised if they, with what's happening now, with the way Spectre ended, with him, with Madeline Swan, I wouldn't be surprised if they probably do a kind of a variation of Honor Majesty's Secret Service, where he marries her and then probably dies. I wouldn't be surprised.
I honestly think that this is pretty much the end of 007. I give it another 10 years at the most before we start getting to the point where it's considered ridiculous, and the fandom starts deteriorating for the new movies that are coming. The fandom will always be there for the original 007 movies, the ones that are up to date. But I think that this is the what do you call it? It starts the downward spiral of James Bond from here on out. It's doing the same thing that Doctor Who has done and done in the past.
And Doctor Who's always bounced back.
Yes, but that is after a long period of time and a long hiatus.
Oh, I'm talking about pretty soon now. We're going to be getting a brand new era coming up soon.
Oh, yeah.
On that one. And it's only a matter of time. I mean, this one coming up is going to be Daniel Craig's last one because he was contracted for 5.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he is getting on here. But, yeah, this will be his 5th, which means we'll probably get a new Bond sometime soon. And it'll probably be a drastic change. He might be Ginger. He might be Idris Elba.
I heard Fassbender. That would be interesting.
Ooh.
That would be very interesting.
Ooh, Fassbender.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that.
That's been circulating a lot in the buzz.
It's a good one. Actually, another one I liked is another one I kind of was intrigued by was Damian Lewis from
and that's where it's going to depend on who they get to play the next.
Yeah,
James.
Well, and even then, it all depends on his characterization and how that's going to affect the aesthetic. And that's the one thing going back to what I said before. I liked how, depending on who was playing Bond, I liked how it actually did kind of affect around it. It affected the stories and there's a good segue, the villains.
Yes.
The villains always kind of varied in tone based on the Bond they were facing off against.
Oh, let's go into the villains.
Let's go into those villains there. I mean, we already alluded to it. Since we already talked about Jim Phelps, let's continue on with
Philip Seymour Hoffman. Do I need to say more about best villains in a movie?
Yeah, he was. I mean, the whole thing started with him being pretty nasty, pretty sadistic. I mean, that whole opening thing where he's doing the countdown, it was incredible. Or even
I love that sequence where he's just the guy's talking to him and trying to plead with him, and he's like 1, and he's just talking, trying to plead for his life, and 2.
And I love that they keep
staring at him blankly. It's great. I love that scene.
And I love how they start off with that scene because then afterwards you got that great bit that was in the trailer where he's like, "Do you have someone and because I'm gonna find them, I'm gonna hurt." And like, because you've seen the scene beforehand, when you get to that scene, inevitably, he ain't playing.
Yeah.
And the other one, honestly, I'd say would probably be his competition would be the villain from Rogue Nation, actually. The thing I kind of liked about him, first off, presence-wise, he had a nice kind of I kind of like those villains that just seem to be devoid of any kind of emotion as far as what they do, because you have to be separated from the human condition in order to do the horrible things you do.
Yeah.
And the stuff he was doing to people in that one was pretty messed up, particularly what he did to Benji.
But I like how they humanize the villains in Mission Impossible. They don't do that in the Bond films.
Depends on the villain. In the end, that comes down to the villains. There are some that are definitely a lot more, I'd say probably one of the most humanized villain in Bond was Alec Trevelyan in GoldenEye.
Yes.
Specifically because they actually gave him a very strong background regarding the fact that his parents were Lian's Cossacks, the fact that that
was probably one of my favorite Bond movies, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I gotta say about his villains, though, his villains also had a tendency to reflect the age to which they were coming in from. Yeah. One of my favorite villains, and I think he's probably one of the most underrated villains in one of the most underrated Bond movies, is Elliot Carver in Tomorrow Never Dies. Specifically, and many people have made the parallels to Rupert Murdoch with him. And honestly, in this day and age, with the whole obsession with fake news and the obsession of not really knowing which news source you can truly trust because you don't know. Like you go to a supermarket and you see the Globe newspaper, and you see them bashing Hillary Clinton, bashing Obama, but then alternatively you got the extreme left side where they're still frankly leaning on their side a bit more, but at the same time you don't know what's more propaganda for the sake of an agenda or this, and that's where I think the Bond villains.
With the news.
I mean, that's the one thing I gotta say. Mission Impossible villains are just good. They have layers just as characters, but they don't reflect the age.
Yeah.
And that's what the Bond villains work particularly well. They reflect the age they work in.
I don't like how they weren't fleshed out. They weren't given an identity.
Once again, it all varies based on the movie. Like another villain I'd say is extremely fleshed out and on a par with the freaking Heath Ledger's Joker is Silva from Skyfall. That guy.
Okay, I take that. All right.
Yeah, you just have to actually really get into the ebb and flow of certain characters. I mean, yes, I'll admit some villains are a rehash of the other. Some are maybe the same one but done better, like going back to Moonraker.
Yes.
Moonraker and The Spy Who Loved Me are virtually the funny thing is, plot-wise, Moonraker and Spy Who Loved Me are virtually the exact same movie. They have the exact same plot.
Acting on both
The
sides.
one thing I'm gonna have to say about Moonraker has over Spy Who Loved Me, better villain. Specifically,
and better acting.
Yeah, much better acting. You got Michael
Much
Lonsdale. Yeah, Michael Lonsdale from
better.
Day of the Jackal. Kurt Jurgens is fine, but he just sat there being doughy and monotone.
I mean, it's day and night with certain movies of the Bond films. There's some that are really, really campy, some really cheesy
extremely
villains, and it's like you said, it's a testament to the time and stuff like that.
Exactly.
But and I think that Mission Impossible is going to be the same because a lot of them are very identifiable to modern times.
Yeah.
For modern situations and issues that are going on.
Though
20, 30 years from now, we're going to be saying the same thing about Mission Impossible.
Though I'm going to be asking you, though, on that note, do we remember any definable thing about Cobalt in Ghost Protocol?
No. Nothing at all.
He didn't even. I can't even imagine. I was like, what was he? Were even his politics? I mean,
anarchy, I guess you could say. I don't honestly
jumping on the Joker bandwagon there. I mean, it's like at least the Joker had like some way of like rationalizing to himself why anarchy works. We didn't get anything with this guy to find out, so
we didn't.
You're right. So
you're right. I'll give you
that was his first. That was his first.
Point.
Yeah, first weak villain. I mean, at least with Jim Phelps, he was doing the Jack Travis Lethal Weapon 3 thing, where it's like, yeah, I'm at that age now where pretty much everyone's gonna throw me out with the evening trash, so I might as well just take them for all they got before I go.
I mean, I like the Mission Impossible franchise as a whole, the characters, the plots, the villains, everything, because they're more relatable in modern day. The James Bond movies to modern aspects, I don't see that identifiability with the Daniel Craig movies. The Daniel Craig movies are just action movies. They don't have that identifiable aspect that Mission Impossible has currently. It doesn't have the political agenda. It doesn't have the motivations of modern times.
That I'm definitely going to have to review. Definitely. Matter of fact, one of the things that was brilliant about Casino Royale, while it does follow the book, the one thing that's amazing about it is that it actually, bear in mind, this movie came out 4 years after 9/11. They actually utilized politics of post 9/11 age, and they updated the book for that sake. They actually utilized the idea that there are people in this world who actually profiteer off of acts of terrorism. They updated, whereas when the book was written, they were talking about, of course, Cold War, all that. But then they decided, no, we're going to focus on profiteering amidst terrorism. They added a whole subplot about Le Chiffre trying to blow up a airliner, where he was going to up the stocks because they were going to go through the roof if that plane blew up. So they did use modern politics to reflect the age. And going back to what I said, that's where the best Bond films always did. They always reflected what was happening in the world at that time. License to Kill, you had Franz Sanchez. Around the time that movie came out, the war on drugs was huge. In the late 80s, the war on drugs was like one of the hot topics at that time. So it was great to
controversy and all
and
that
of course,
stuff,
and I forget. Pablo Escobar. Yeah, that the villain Franz Sanchez was actually meant to be a parallel to Pablo Escobar.
And that's why the James Bond movies from that era were identifiable. I don't see that with the Daniel Craig ones recently. The last 2 or 3, I don't see that parallel. I don't see that umph that there used to be with the James Bond movies. There's something missing with it. It's the eloquence, maybe. There's something oddly missing with the modern James Bond, even though I enjoy the movies as a whole. And even the new ones, I enjoy watching them. I own them because I enjoy watching them, obviously. But the Mission Impossible, I think it's more identifiable to a modern audience than the recent James Bond.
I mean, I can definitely say there is a nice earthy tone that does permeate through the Mission Impossible films. I will give it that. You do get the feeling that there could be a sense of believability in the Mission Impossible films. I mean, they definitely don't go for the outrageous. The outrageous. I mean, that's what Bond has always done particularly well. Sorry, lost my train of thought there. You can cut that bit. But that's kind of what Bond's always done well. He's always gone bigger. I mean, as much as we love all the stunts that Tom Cruise does, the stories did always seem to have a much more, more restrained. They were that all except MI2.
MI2, I'll give you. They're trying to lure the James Bond audience with it. I think they're aiming to make it
Probably,
like a rip-off of James Bond.
I wouldn't be surprised probably to
more than
offset.
the first one.
I wouldn't be surprised probably to offset the criticisms because the first one did get some criticisms for being a little too convoluted.
Yeah. So they
honestly,
dumbed it down, but after that, those films just blew up, and it took a 6-year hiatus.
Thank you, J.J. Abrams.
It took a 6-year hiatus to do it, but
yeah,
they did it.
Yes, they did.
And that's where I see the difference between Bond and Mission Impossible.
I'd say the thing that's going to sustain, or at least the test, the ultimate test, is will the franchise sustain after Tom Cruise is done with it? That's what's going to be the ultimate test. Because here's the thing. Here's the thing. Many people didn't think Bond would survive after Connery left.
Yep.
That's the major thing. And here's the funny part. Most people don't realize this. Definitely recommend watching the documentary Becoming Bond. People thought Lazenby got kicked off. No. He just did not like the life that he would have been in store for.
Really?
That's what. Because unfortunately, they wanted him to sign a contract, which basically would have put a big stamp on his butt saying, "We own you."
Yeah.
And he said, "No, that ain't for me." And
that's pretty awesome.
He pulled out. He resigned. He resigned the role, and because he knew that it was a big commitment, Sean Connery, he wanted out desperately.
Yeah.
Because when he was filming You Only Live Twice, it was obscene how badly he was swamped everywhere. He couldn't go anywhere. Wow. Connery actually he stopped doing premieres because when he rolled up in the Aston Martin for Goldfinger, a fan jumped in through the window.
Oh, that's exactly what we're analyzing here.
Yeah.
I think the fandom for 007 is a lot higher than Mission Impossible currently.
And
but then again, it's
had 50+ years, and the essence of what has made Bond stand out is the fact that he is meant to kind of represent the ideal, and the ideal that pretty much anyone would want to aspire to be. You know, the guy who gets the girls, the guy who has all the best one-liners, the guy who is good in a crisis. He's that kind of badass that all of us kind of like want to be, but we know is impossible. So with Mission Impossible, they do have ground themselves to a point where you can actually kind of believe that a little bit more.
Okay.
I mean,
what would you recommend to the audience if they've never seen a James Bond movie? Why would they go see a James Bond movie now?
I'd say, if anything else, if you're an action fan, pure and simple, that you're going to get a nice variety throughout the ages.
And where should you start? Should you start from the beginning, or should you start wherever you want?
For that, actually, I kind of go by Doctor Who rules and actually kind of start with some of the more recent examples. Because, of course, modern sensibilities tend to betray your ability to go back and watch some of the earlier filmmaking techniques. Because I will say, you go back and watch Doctor No, it's pretty archaic by comparison to our techniques nowadays. I'd actually say go ahead and start with Brosnan's era. Go a bit forward, and then just work back to Timothy Dalton. Actually start with License to Kill. Well, that's just me. I love License to Kill. I think it's a
I enjoyed any.
Yeah, that one is severely underrated Bond film. But I'd say start with Brosnan, move forward, forgive Die Another Day, hell, skip a Die Another Day. Either do one thing, 2 days of Die Another Day. Either skip it or get really drunk. That's what I do when I'm doing my Bond binge, because we always do a Bond binge before a new movie comes out. And when when me and my wife get to Die Another Day, we're like surfing. The 5-foot Korean guy turns into a 6-foot white British guy within 18 months, and he starts his own evil empire. It's like, how does that work?
Yeah, I know. That's kind of outrageous.
So admittedly, for Mission Impossible, they've only had 5 films, so they haven't gotten to that point yet. I'm still waiting for that point yet.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for them to get to that point.
And now that's a true testament to see if it'll survive a really bad movie.
That's true. I mean, for all its faults, Mission Impossible 2 is still a fun movie to watch.
It is. Oh, hell yeah.
It's a hilarious movie to watch.
Oh, yeah.
And the one thing I'm sad that they didn't carry over. I'm wondering if they intended to, but I'm sad they didn't carry Tandy Newton's character from Mission Impossible 2 over into the...
I think that was actually a conflict of scheduling and stuff like that for the next film.
Yeah.
And they couldn't bring her over.
I'm wondering if...
And they're just kind of
Yeah, I'm wondering if Kerry Russell's character from the third one was meant to be...
I think so.
Tandy Newton's character. I was
think so.
That would have been kind of cool. And actually I would have bought more of the emotional investment.
Yeah.
Into... Yeah. You get what I mean.
Yeah.
You get what I mean. It's like I would have been affected by it too, because I really dug her character from MI2.
Yeah.
The fact that she was willing to take the virus and actually willing to top herself if Ethan didn't come back with a cure, I was like, that is a great character.
Was so good. So for Mission Impossible, I think anybody that likes the exploration of espionage movies, but grounded in reality, grounded in a person that actually can die, can be mortally wounded, can be infected with viruses, can actually suffer loss, and you actually see the character's life fall apart film by film by film, and everybody around him and how it affects him. Yeah. This is more of a centralized group spy movie, more like towards the effect of Kingsman, more like the effect of Bourne Identity.
I was about to say the Bourne movies.
Those, and the reason we didn't want to do a fandom of those two is because honestly, these are the two big franchises.
These are the big boys.
These are the big honchos.
Yeah.
And all those movies reflect off of these two big fandoms, basically. And that's why I enjoy the Mission Impossible movies. And also, there is no older movies to say that they're dated, besides the TV show, but TV back then was forward. Action-wise.
Action-wise,
even the Mission Impossible show was bearable.
I suppose, yeah. Well, in my brain, I'm thinking of another spy series that I loved from the 60s, The Avengers.
Yeah.
But you know what, the thing is, that show was so. If anything else, that show was basically what Austin Powers was, minus the over-the-top sex.
Yeah.
That show. Well, actually, if anything, it was Austin Powers in the afterglow, where after they've had sex. Well, the fun thing is, John Steed never appealed. Patrick Denise said, like, for a lot of the scenes, they pretended that they just had sex, and that's why their chemistry was so good. But
that's awesome.
Dame Diana, Queen of Thorns. Sorry, getting off, but yeah, but because that one was such an over-the-top TV series, I get, the fight scenes I was allowed to be a little campy on that one.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah.
All right, credit where it's due.
But
fair
the
dues.
respawning of it in the movie franchise, it gave it a completely new light, and it gave it a light for the modern audience of 007 fans. I think this is the franchises. If any franchise will take over the reins of 007 and the 50 last years, and move it on into the new generations, I think Mission Impossible will be.
And if your prophecy comes to pass, I admit I would not be angry at that, because the Mission Impossible films have consistently gotten better and better. Like, surprisingly, everyone was surprised by how good Ghost Protocol was, and then all of a sudden, and they thought, oh, no way you could follow it up, and I was like, Rogue Nation, was really freaking good.
Oh
so,
yeah.
So they seem to be on this nice upward spiral. Who's directing the next one? Is it McQuarrie again?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who's directing the next one, but I mean, they've gotten A-list directors across the board. They haven't gotten a bad director yet.
Well, McQuarrie, I will say I was excited, because him and Tom Cruise and McQuarrie, man, they've had great collaborations consistently off the bat. I mean, who knows? Maybe if he was the one person writing the script for the Mummy might have been better. Except for the 27 people who wrote it before him.
All right, so let's wrap up. What's your conclusion with James Bond? How do you?
Well, James Bond has survived for 50 years for a simple reason, because of the fact that it has grown considerably over years. Not just for the filmmaking terms, like I said. I mean, it has always kind of represented the standard of the way action films are made over the years, but because they have had multiple actors personifying it, and because of the way they performed it, the films have always had varying tones based on that. They never got stagnant in their style, because if you want a more lightweight, like more fun-spirited one, you watch the Roger Moores. If you want something that's more, suave, but at the same time just a little bit classic Cold War spire, you watch the Connerys. Or if you want to watch something that is much more hardcore, balls to the wall, but yet with a nice level of psychological depth, I'd say go with Craig. Or if you just want to see a guy fed to a shark, you watch Timothy Dalton. But there is a variety to it, which has kept it consistently fresh over the years. And so long as they keep that, I personally feel that the franchise will never die. Now, whatever they're going to do for the future to try and keep it fresh, I mean, I just hope it's not going to be some kind of gimmick.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah. As much as I love Idris Elba and how I feel he can definitely find the core of the character,
let's see if they go with a female 007.
But
hey, Look at the progression. Everything's done.
Well, here's the thing.
If
there was room for it in Doctor Who. There was room for it in Doctor Who.
Yes.
There was room for it in Doctor Who, but here's the thing. Bond actually has an established background, an established history.
Now, if they do that, then we know they're pandering to the audience.
Yeah. Though, I mean, I'm intrigued about Ocean's 8, though.
I am.
I saw the trailer.
We went over the difference last time.
Yeah, we did. All right. We did.
It's an established character.
Well, now the trailer's out, and I will say the trailer actually looked very.
Oh yes.
Actually looked like a lot of fun.
I'm excited to see it.
I'm very excited now. So
let's.
That's
see
another. That's another. Versus film like heist movie fandoms.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, Italian Job versus Ocean's 11.
Yes. All right. So my name is Lewis. I was representing Mission Impossible and its abundance of franchises that it has, and TV show from the 60s, and
John Reid Adams from Narcotic Cassarole, representing James Bond in many ways possible, including Double November on Narcotic Cassarole. Check it out. Pointing out the fact that this is a franchise that has remained consistently malleable throughout the years and has been able to ride with the times and actually been able to show new ways action films can be made. So that's my stance.
And this is Man vs. Film, our new fandom versus fandom show that we'll be releasing at least once a month, if not more. So we'll see you guys for another episode soon, and remember to check us out on Man Bites Film and
Narcotic Cassarole.
Links will be down below with everybody's information. So see you guys next time.